Hello everyone, and welcome to our Church360 Ledger training webinar on setting your budget. My name is Stephen Jenkins, and I'm a software consultant here at Concordia Technology Solutions. I've been here a little more than 2.5 years. You can see my name, my email, and my phone number on the screen. If you have any questions about the information covered in this training but are not able to post them before the end of this webinar, feel free to contact me directly. I will display my contact information again at the end of the webinar so that you will have another opportunity to write it down. Little housekeeping. Since this is only a 30-minute webinar, I want to jump right in. We have 25 minutes for the presentation and 5 minutes for questions. Feel free to post your questions throughout. Just be aware that I will not be able to address them until the end of the webinar. This webinar will be recorded and shared so that you can review or share this video with others at your church. For our specific training today, we'll cover setting your budget. And before we get into that, we're going to briefly go over the chart of accounts and budget and how they relate to each other. Selecting a fiscal year for your budget as they also relate to each other. There's a foundation for this webinar in knowing how to set your chart of accounts as well as your fiscal year. If you don't know how to do that yet, I recommend you go back and watch some of our previous Church360 Ledger training webinars and the ones that cover those two areas before you attempt to set your budget. We'll talk about different ways you can set your budget. Of course, you'll be able to set your budget based on numbers you enter, but we'll also provide some data in Ledger so you can set your budget based on historical numbers, and you can change all your numbers to last year's actuals or last year's budget. We'll also briefly go over our statement of income and expense and the chart of account reports because both of those show figures that are related to the numbers that are set in your budget. We'll also talk about exporting your budgets to Excel and copying and pasting your budgets into Ledger from Excel. So if you're transitioning over from using books in Excel or from a different program that you have exported your figures to Excel, there's a way you can capture all of that information and import it into Ledger, and I'll show you how to do that today. With that in mind, let's get started. So I'm going to go over, switch my screen to our training site here and log in. This should be familiar to you if you've seen one of our other training webinars. The first thing that we want to talk about is how your chart of accounts relates to your budgets. And I'm going to switch to one of my other books here. I'll switch it to my preschool book. It'll notify me, let me know that I made that change. And I'm switching here because it doesn't have a lot of data in it. So if I click on my settings and go to my chart of accounts, you'll see that the accounts listed here will also show in the budget section of the settings. Once you've created your chart of accounts, you can go back to the settings and click on budget to access your data. As you can see, the data listed here, and I'll go to my budgets. This looks exactly how the chart of accounts section looks. So let me go back and show you the chart of accounts again. My assets, liabilities, income and expenses. Now let me go and switch back to my budgets. And you'll see everything looks the same here. I can click on my date field here on the right, And I can navigate between different fiscal years, and these are the years that you set up in your settings. The way the fiscal years start is depending on how you set them up in the settings. So if I go to my settings and I click on fiscal years, I can change the starting month of the fiscal year by clicking within this box here. So if I change my fiscal year to start in July and I click Save, I can go back to my settings here and to the budgets, and you'll notice here, let's see. Let me try that one more time. Okay, let's go back to my budgets. I have a little hiccup here. It should have changed and showed July through June, but that's okay, we'll move on. The reasons why I showed you this empty book is to point out that anything you have in your chart of accounts automatically updates in the budget section. In other words, you can't budget for anything you don't have in your chart of accounts. Also, the ways that these months appear across the top here are dependent on how your fiscal years are set up in the settings. Now, with that in mind, I'm going to go over to a different book. And this book has a lot more data, so it's going to take a while to populate here. And I'll be able to show you the complete functionality of Church360 Ledger. So this is the test book that I use for conducting training webinars. I'm going to go over to my settings and go to my budgets and give it a minute to load up. And you'll see that the budget data looks very different from the other book I originally showed, because I have all of my main income and expense accounts set up here in my budget. It's more robust than the previous book that I showed, so a lot more data here. As I scroll down, you'll see all of this data that's in the system here. You'll also see that since this book is set for January through December for the fiscal year, those are the months that you see across the top here. I'm going to set my budget for the next fiscal year. One day you'll notice is that you're able to go back and forth between fiscal years and for your budget by clicking on this date field at the top right side of the screen. I'll select 2018 so I can populate my budget totals for 2018. You'll notice that all of the months here are set to 0, but if I click into some of the cells, I have a few options. I can set it for previous year's budget or previous year's actual. If I wanted to, I can click through all of my previous year's figures and it will set them to whatever I choose. So I can click here and set here. Just clicking my budgets here from last year, and you see everything updates. So I can do this for for certain numbers of my accounts. If you want to start out with your previous year's budget and reprise it that way, you have another option in doing so. So I can scroll all the way to the bottom, and on the right side, what I'm going to do is click my reset button, and then everything zeroes out. And I can start over. So I can scroll back to the top and click on Change All at the top here, and I have two options. So I have the option to change all to last year's budget or change all to last year's actual if I wanted to, and you're going to see all the numbers populate for me. So clicking here will change everything to either last year's budget or last year's actual. This will save you time versus clicking through each cell to set your budget. So if I click last year's budget here, you see all of my data populates last year's budget. So depending on how your church budgets, if you budget based on the previous year's budget for your starting point or what you've actually spent last year, you can look at these numbers without opening a separate window. Now, most churches don't set their budgets to exactly what they've budgeted last year for every year. So once you've set your budget, you can make adjustments to either the totals or each individual month for each fund. And you can do this by simply keying in your numbers in the total column or entering in the monthly columns. So if I go here, I can change this. Let's say I want to change it from 600 to 700. Let's see here. Let me reset here at the bottom. I'm going to change to last year's budget. And so here, having a little bit of difficulty. Let's see. Here we go. So I can enter it in this month 400 in my total updates here. Also, if I click here, I can change 600. Let's say I want to make that 700. I can make that change, and you see the totals update. If you want to just update some of the months, you can do that too. And once again, let's say if I go to April and down here under Chrome Music, I'll insert 100 here. Same for May, June, and last one, July. So as I'm entering in these numbers here, you'll see the total on the left update. Now this definitely shows you that you can be flexible in the way that you're able to set your budgets in Church360 Ledger. Now keep in mind that you can always click the reset button at the bottom right if you made a few mistakes and want to start over. And so clicking reset will take you back to the figures that you last saved. So I didn't save anything, I'll click reset and I'm back to 0. So let me switch it back and I'm going to go back to last year's budget. And I'm going to go to the bottom and I'm going to make my changes and save them. Now we're going to cover exporting budgets to Excel. So a lot of churches we've worked with have sent in feedback to let us know that they've been using Microsoft Excel to do their budgets, and they've requested a way to work with Excel and the software, whether it's exporting or importing data. We've listened, and now you're able to export your data out to Excel and take the budgets that you have created in Excel and import them into Church360 Ledger. To demonstrate importing from Excel, I'm going to first go here back to the top. I've already changed my budget to last year's budget and saved my changes. That's why you saw things gray out. And so now this is finished saving. You'll see the notification at the top saying your budgets were updated. And I can click the Export to Excel button, and then Excel populates. And I'm going to expand this so you can see it, and you'll see that my numbers here look exactly how they look in Excel. Your category totals, which are at the top, the bolded words here on the left, They are set up by formulas that are already set in Excel. So if you look at one of the category totals in bold, you'll see the amounts are automatically summing up each fund of counts in the categories beneath it. So the youth and young adults, this total number is summing up the young adults fund and the youth fund. 600 here, 600 here. That's how you get the total of 1,200 at the top. Your category totals, once again, are set up exactly how you have the formulas set in Excel. The total at the very top sums up all of the totals below it. So this $610,050 is the combination of everything underneath it added together. You'll notice that if I change the total of one of the funds, the category totals as well as the totals at the top will update and reflect the changes I've made below. So if I come here and I change the $600 to $900, you see my totals change here and change here as well. So it went from $1,200 to $1,500 for the youth and young adults income expense here. So if you're more comfortable with working in Excel and want to set up your budgets that way, you'll be able to do so and later on import your data into Ledger. Once you're done importing data from Excel into Ledger, just simply change your changes. How this all works together is in two of our reports. So let me switch back to Ledger. And I can go to my reports, which is the third icon right here. And so those reports are the income and expense reports and the chart of accounts report. So I'm going to start with our income and expense report. You can see that these figures all tie to your budget. You see the budget that was set versus the actuals, and you can expand and collapse the data anywhere you wish. So if I click here to collapse, and here, now you see the totals for your income and expenses without breaking them out. But if I expand expense, then you'll see all of the categories underneath. Just like we did with our budget, you can also export your income and expense to Excel. So I'll click that here. And we have that open. I'll enlarge it. Once I click the Enable Editing button, my figures will populate and you'll see the formulas from Ledger carry over to the Excel spreadsheet. The next report I'm going to show today is the chart of accounts report. So I'll go back to Ledger, back to reports, and chart of accounts. Now this report looks similar, but there are a few differences in this report. Your starting balance and ending balance, debits, credits, and change over time are shown here across the top. This is another report you might want to export to Excel and have open to assist you with setting your budget for the upcoming fiscal year. You may even want to have these two reports open side by side to see the comparison of the total income and expenses versus the assets and liabilities shown in your chart of accounts. So let me export this out. I have this here. And let me change this here to the budget. I'm going to minimize this here. And I'll bring these side by side. Now this will give you a good idea of how you're doing in your actual accounts versus how you've budgeted for your income and expenses. So those are our two reports, income and expense, and the chart of accounts. The rest of the time that we have will be dedicated to your questions and answers. Let me go back to my slide here. Now while you're thinking about and writing your questions, let me take this time to point out that we have a products update blog. Simply go to 360ledger.com/blog to access all of the blogs that we have. And we encourage you to subscribe to receive the blogs via email so that you can be notified whenever there are new features added to our software. We also have help articles. So if you go to 360ledger.zendesk.com/HC/EN-US, you can gain access to our help articles to assist you in the software. Also, let me switch back here. If we click on this icon here at the bottom right, this will give you access to our suggested articles. So that's a different way to do so. We do sell a training manual, and we have that available for $25 plus shipping. And you can order that either on our website, 360ledger.com/training, or by giving us a call at the sales department. I want to bring up my contact information again, as well as the contact phone number and email address for our support team. You can access or contact the support team Monday through Friday from 7:30 a.m. to 5 o'clock Central Time. And so once again, feel free to take down these numbers to either give me a call or reach out to our help desk team if you have any questions about today's topic. Now I'm looking here, I don't have any questions, so we're going to end a little early today, but I'll leave my information up here so that once again you can jot that down and reach out if a question comes up to you later on. Also, let me point out one more time, the updates via blog, so 360ledger.com/blog, and also our help articles, 360ledger.zendesk.com/HC/EN-US. Still, we don't have any questions, so we're going to wrap up. And I'd like to thank you for attending today's webinar on setting your budgets. And I hope everyone has a wonderful day.